¿Qué tal si le paso ahorita el trabajo a Carolina de introducir a nuestras ayudantes de hoy, que son Michelle, Andrea y Jocelyn, en lo que averiguo cómo asignar a Lena de intérprete?
My turn? Is it my turn?
Yes, please. Can you just introduce who Michelle, Jocelyn, and Andrea are?
Sure. So these are our interns from Channel Islands, well, California State University Channel Islands. We have been working with them for the last, 2 months, 6 weeks? It's been a while. They're amazing. So if you need help during this event, please just chat. In the chat box, you can direct messages. They will answer. You'll see their images on the screen. They say tech support. So don't hesitate to reach out to them if you have any issues with interpretation or just any questions at all. Okay. So can I talk, RC? Can I get started?
Yeah. I'm still trying to get her to be our interpreter here.
Oh, still, okay.
Yeah.
Bueno, bienvenidos a todos. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Comenzamos. Y me encantaría comenzar con Carolina, que nos diga un poquito de ella, del Oxnard Performing Arts Center, porque pues sin el Oxnard Performing Arts Center esto no estaría pasando. Se necesita un lugar como el Performing Arts Center para poder traer estos proyectos hacia la comunidad.
Thank you, Arcelia. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carolyn Marino-Mullen. I'm the Executive Director at the Oxnard Performing Arts Center. We've had a lot of changes over the last year, and you might be thinking, why is the Performing Arts Center focusing on mental health? And I'm here to answer that question. We're very excited that the Canyon has come on as our live entertainment partner, which takes a lot off our plate. So they're presenting concerts throughout this pandemic in our parking lot, comedy shows. So it's a wonderful thing for Oxnard to now have that sort of talent and promotion here at our venue. And that frees up the Performing Arts Center, well, OPAC, the Oxnard Performing Arts Center Corporation. That's our name. We're going by the acronym OPAC, OPAC, to focus on community. And many of you may or may not know that before the theater was even built, there was a community center on site. And so that's really what we're focusing on, is the classrooms and the outdoor courtyard spaces and the ballrooms. That is what encompasses the community center. But during this pandemic, it's created an opportunity for us to connect with each other virtually and even off-site. So we are excited to create programming like this. I did want to bring up our new mission statement. Our board of directors has worked very hard this year on this, revisioning who we are, what we do, and how we serve our community. And OPAC is at the center of Oxnard's artistic, educational, and economic life. And we invite residents to discover, create, and connect through engagement with the arts and with each other. Our vision is that OPAC will become a cultural beacon and a catalyst for advancing the arts, enhancing quality of life, and promoting cultural development within Ventura County and beyond, by serving as an incubator for creative innovation and assuming a key role in strategic arts planning. Will continue to be a valuable, vibrant, and vital part of Oxnard's cultural life. And I have to say, before I became the director of the nonprofit, I was in charge of our events. And one of the events that we put together last year was the Sight and Sound Film Festival. And this is really how I got to know Arcelia. And she has an incredible work ethic and an amazing perspective. And I've learned so much from her about what it means to be a filmmaker, what it means to be an artist, what it means to be a resident of Oxnard. And that comes with some challenges. And so when I approached her about what would an artist in residency look like to you, this is what she told me. It's got to be the Esperanza Project. It has to be about mental health. So I'm excited that in this pandemic, we can support an artist like Arcelia. She's with us for an entire year, focusing on mental health. She's going to be creating a short documentary in this process, but she's also creating space for us to connect and communicate and open this conversation about mental health and hopefully destigmatize this topic. So really, the Performing Arts Center is here in a very supportive capacity, but thank you again for opening your afternoon to us and to this topic and to ARCELIA. So with that, Arcee, what's next?
Thank you, Carolyn. Great information. Ahora, un poquito de mí, para mí, yo les doy simplemente una o dos frases. Soy una artista aquí en Oxnard y lo que más me
Oxnard, and what I really care about the most is to give the community the opportunities that I've seen that a few people that I know and myself had.
Como sabemos, está teniendo mucho conflicto interno entre todos nosotros y la salud mental, agregándole también la pandemia, es algo muy importante, lo tenemos que tener al frente. Así que para mí siempre es importante tener cualquier tema que estoy haciendo, la comunidad en mente. ¿Qué nos hace falta? ¿Qué necesitamos para poder crecer como personas y como comunidad? Así que con eso, quisiera antes de que sigamos a conocer a todos los panelistas, las panelistas increíbles que tenemos, es tomar un minuto y darle la oportunidad a Karina Chavarría, una de las invitadas, para que nos dé un poquito de, como le decimos, un disclaimer, un poquito de instrucción por si necesitamos ayuda durante esta conversación. Karina.
Buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es doctora Karina Chavarría. Soy profesora en sociología en la Universidad de Channel Islands. Antes de empezar la conversación, queremos asegurarnos de que todos se sientan cómodos, que tengan la libertad de expresar sus incomodidades si acaso los experiencian. Especialmente porque el tema de hoy puede...
Because the topic today may cause a bit of unease or feel uncomfortable because we're going to be talking about serious difficulties from the Latino youth are experiencing and they're confronting in our society at this moment. We want to let you know that if any of these conversations or the topics makes you feel uncomfortable or is causing any memories, maybe about traumas that had been experienced in the past, we would want to ask you to take action, and if you need to leave the presentation for a minute or so to get a break. Please do so. You can always come back into this presentation when you feel ready. We want to make sure that we are sharing this information that we're going to give you and that you are able to use this information. So again, we want to please remind you that this conversation is for your personal use, for the most of what you need, and if you need to take a pause or a break between this presentation, please do so. Arcelia.
Muchas gracias, Karina. Así que ahorita se lo paso a Carolina para que nos facilite ayudar a nuestras invitadas para que se introduzcan, porque también tenemos artistas de quien queremos platicarles y compartir un poquito de su trabajo, pero primero, Carolina, y nos ayuda con los panelistas.
Thank you. And then before I introduce the panelists, I have to give a shout out to the California Arts Council for helping to support this programming series. Without their financial support, we could not be doing it. So thank you, California Arts Council, for making this possible. All right, so our speakers are incredible. Like, I cannot summarize what you do. And for example, Dr. Lori Santamaria, you have like 4 different titles and you work, I mean, all across the county. So I want to give them opportunity to talk about who they are, what they do, and the communities that they serve. So with that, do you want to start, Dr. Lori?
Absolutamente. Muchísimas gracias, Carolyn. Buenas tardes a todas y todos. Gracias, Arcelia, por este proyecto Esperanza. Thank you all. Muchísimas gracias, compañeras, panelistas y todos ustedes que han tomado tiempo de su sábado, como compañeras, por la tarde para unirse a nosotros para esta conversación virtual. Bueno, mi nombre es doctora Lori Santamaria. Estoy aquí representando el proyecto mixteco indígena, también conocido como MICOP. Ya soy la directora y investigadora principal de un proyecto se llama Curando el Alma. Trabajo en equipo de especialistas, promotoras que también son investigadoras comunitarias y han sido capacitadas en las modalidades tradicionales de curación mixteca por ancianas indígenas de Oaxaca en la comunidad MICOP. Nuestro trabajo es financiado por una beca estatal y del condado. Este es diseñado para aumentar el número de referencias de miembros de la comunidad mixteca al condado para obtener asistencia con los servicios de salud mental. Voy a hablar un poquito más despacio. Discúlpame.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Lori.
El trabajo de nosotros implica diseño experimental de investigación empírica para determinar las cosas. I'm going to switch to English. I don't know if it's going to help or not, but let me just try to make sure. It's very important that the participants understand what it is that we do in this project. The work is about whether or not our community recognizes stress, anxiety, and depression as aspects of mental health. We are supposed to figure out whether we understand these concepts. Now, in order to do that, we needed to talk to community members. And so we had some focus group interviews with 21 members of the Mixteco Indígena community. We also had some interviews with about 150 people. After the interviews and the focus group interviews, we found out that there were definitely curaciones indígenas. There are definitely traditional healing practices taking place in our community in Oxnard. And we needed to learn what they were because the point of the research was to find out if they are effective or not so that the county could integrate the work. So I don't want to tell you anything else, but you should know that the research went very well. After 280 participants got to receive the curaciones. And I'm here, part of this panel, to share some complementary medicine, not something to do instead of going to see a doctor or going to see a psychologist, but complementary medicine. And that is what we believe that the traditional healing methods are. And, and I want to give the floor to whoever's next, but thank you. And I apologize, the first one going with the simultaneous translation. I hope that the points were able to be communicated, and pues ojalá que todo va a estar bien. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you,
la
Dr.
oportunidad.
Yeah, no, that was great. Patricia Cortez Washington of SEMILLAS Counseling and Wellness. You want to go next?
Yeah, I will. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm so happy when ARCELIA reached out to me and she was so excited about this project. I couldn't help but get excited myself. My name is Patricia, or Pati Cortez Washington. I'm originally from Michoacan, Mexico. And I have been a resident of Oxnard since the age of 10, so quite a long time. I first started out working in the fields with my family. So, you know, kind of working up and down the coast of California. And those really early years really were integral into my love of community and my desire to help. I always knew I was going to be in some sort of helping profession. And so through my years, I have really had, well, I've had about, let me see, I've been in the field, it's in the social work profession about 20 years now. So it's been quite a long journey. And when I started SEMILLAS Counseling and Wellness 3 years ago, my desire was really to bridge the traditional kind of Western talk therapy world with the world that I knew of my abuela and her thoughts and my ancestors and their thoughts on healing. And so I always thought through my own healing journey that I never really quite was able to find a practitioner that met my needs. I often found that I was having to translate, so to speak, my lived experience for this therapist. And so in this vulnerable space, I really, you know, thought that we really need to continue to progress the field so that we're having other practitioners that really mirror the community. And, you know, oftentimes they say that, you know, Latinos really don't access mental health, you know, and I really thought, you know, well, that's not necessarily true. The forms in which mental wellness takes place has a different form, but now it's time to really bridge those two worlds together. And so that's really what our focus is here, to provide workshops on wellness, to provide psychotherapy for families, for individuals. And our focus is to really make sure that we are fortifying and ensuring the resilience of our community and providing the space for intergenerational healing. So I'm really proud to join this panel today. I'm very excited to have this conversation. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Pati. All right, so next on our amazing speaker lineup, we have Dr. Karina Chavarria, if I said that right. She's a sociology professor at CSUCI.
Thank you. Thank you all very much for being here. Arcelia, gracias por la invitación. It's when you told me what the content of this conversation was going to be, it was really exciting to see this conversation happening in the community. As an academic, I mean, we've been examining kind of the experiences of Latinos, particularly around access to just general health, right? Health services, but more recently, access to mental health issues, right? And overall just well-being. And just a little biography to inform both the work that I do and my own position in the community. Like Patty, I'm also an immigrant to the US. I was brought here around 8 years old, right? I grew up in San Jose in the Bay Area. And I knew I was undocumented. And for me, my experience being undocumented really shaped my trajectory in education, but also my commitment to the community. And really over the years, understanding the ways those 10 years of my early life here in the US influenced both my intellectual interest, but also my own personal journey, right? And the ways in which policies, particularly, right, like Proposition 187 in the early 90s, impacted my psyche, my emotional state, and the ways those influences shaped what I pursued and how I interacted, right, in society. And that's kind of the foundation on which I do the work that I do. I particularly focus on undocumented young youth and students, especially their experiences in education and how those encounters shape their interactions in other social institutions, right? Politics, civic engagement, and health. And currently I'm engaged in a multi-campus UC CSU research project that examines the experiences of undocumented college students at the UCs and CSUs, particularly around their mental health. And so we have, as other entities have identified, our youth are experiencing some major difficulties in overall well-being, right? Here we're talking about a combination of suicidal ideation, right? Planning, attempts. We are seeing a dramatic hike in our youth experiencing these major mental health difficulties. If we want to talk about numbers, more than 650,000 youth, right, in the past year have reported suicidal ideation and plans, right? That is dramatic. And so I was excited to engage in this conversation with you all, panelists, but also with the community, right? And trying to identify what we already have as a community that can allow us to better support our youth and our children, right? And how we can merge the knowledge that we already have as communities with more, Western notions of medicine, and really create a comprehensive foundation for our youth and for the rest of us, right? As support systems for our children. So thank you very much for this invitation and for engaging in this conversation with the community.
Thank you, Karina. And it sounds like we have one more guest speaker, and that's Daisy Garcia. Daisy is studying psychology at Cal Lutheran, and I was just told that you're also an intern with BRITE, which is a local mental health initiative for young people. So if you want to say hi, we'd love to hear from you.
Yes, hello. I'm really grateful to be able to speak and talk about my experience. I'm grateful to be able to be on a panel with so many amazing professionals. It's really inspirational as an undergraduate student being able to see that, we can do it. But as Carolyn said, I am an intern with BRITE. We do alcohol and drug prevention with the youth in Ventura County, and I've been able to do a couple different projects with them, and was also introduced to ARCELIA through BRITE as well, through my supervisor. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity to be able to give my experience as a Latina, as a first-generation student, being the child of immigrants. I was born in Ventura County, raised in Ventura my whole life, but that doesn't mean, my experience wasn't the same as like everyone else's. And I think a lot of the people here can identify with that. And when I heard about the mission and, the message that Esperanza Project was bringing, I was happy to join. I'm glad I am able to be a part of that and bring that message and share that message with everyone else. So thank you.
Thank you. So RC, you're going to take it from here.
Sí, gracias, Carolina. Ahorita lo que quiero hacer es compartir con todos ustedes dos artistas que queremos nosotros exhibir quiénes son y su trabajo. Y yo sé, ya mero llegamos al baile, ¿no? La conversación es el baile y todos queremos ya bailar, pero hay que comer primero. Así que ahorita les introduzco un poquito rapidito su trabajo de ellas. Les comparto sus páginas de Instagram en donde las pueden seguir apoyando. Y queríamos tomar este momento para introducirles dos artistas que por medio de su trabajo artístico tratan de tener esas conversaciones, sea de salud mental o sea de la experiencia siendo latino en Oxnard, por ejemplo. Así que me permiten tantito y les comparto las fotos primero de, y no se enojen si pronuncio su nombre mal y no le digan. Es Eileen Toltec, creo. Y ella tiene unos dibujos encantadores que se basan en la nostalgia. Así que permítanme compartir esos con ustedes en un momentito. Ok, creo que sí pueden ver, denme un thumbs up por ahí. Entonces ella aquí interpreta pues el clásico El Chavo del Ocho. Tiene algo que hizo que fue comisionada para un libro de colorear de Oxnard. Y estos son otros de sus trabajos. Así que ella es, creo, Eileen Toltec. Cuando la busquen en su página es La Buffy. Y después al ratito volvemos a compartir más información de ella. Ahora sigo compartiendo el trabajo de otra artista que se llama María Anaya. Permítanme tantito. A ver. Okay. María es parte también de un grupo que se llama, creo que se llama los Horror Movies. Y ellos también se dedican a tener esa conversación de salud mental con la comunidad basada en las cosas spookies, como dicen ellos. Ok, listo. Este es uno de sus trabajos. Este que sigue me gusta. Yo sé que muchos se van a reír. ¿Quién no quiere tener eso en su casa? Yo sé que yo sí. Y ella ahorita tiene su trabajo en una exhibición y más después, como les comento, vamos a poder hablar más de ella y de dónde pueden comunicarse con ella a través de su Instagram. Muy bien, así que ahora vamos a ver. Ahora quisiera hacer una pregunta a todos nuestros invitados. Si son de alguna clase, sea de la high school o del colegio, por favor, comuníquense vía chat con Michelle o con Jocelyn para avisarles de qué clase son y quién es su maestro. Por favor, si pueden tomar un minuto para hacer eso. Si son de alguna clase de high school o de colegio, comuníquense con Michelle o Jocelyn vía el chat privado y avísenle quién es su maestro y de qué clase son. Muy bien, muchas gracias por hacer eso. Ahora vamos al baile, como quien dice, vamos a empezar esta conversación. Y gracias todavía a todos por participar. Quisiera invitarlos a compartir su pantalla de vez en cuando. Yo sé que a veces eso causa problemas con la tecnología, pero de vez en cuando, para que puedan las panelistas ver con quién están hablando de la comunidad. Así que los invito para que compartan su pantalla, les den esa energía, aunque no se sienta directamente, para que se sientan ellas inspiradas. Bueno, empezar esta conversación, otra vez gracias a todos por estar aquí, gracias a las expertas panelistas por donar su tiempo. Quiero empezar para entender esta conversación de salud mental. ¿Por qué es difícil hablar de esto? Es la primera pregunta que tenemos que tratar de entender, ¿no? Algunos se nos dificulta con amistades, con papás, con primos. Y es importante ver en todo el aspecto. ¿Por qué es que se nos dificulta a todos? ¿Qué cosas de nuestra cultura, ideología personal se ponen en medio y crean obstáculos. Así que con esta primera pregunta, ¿qué es difícil? ¿Por qué es difícil hablar de la salud mental en las comunidades latinas, hispanas? Le invito a Karina que nos ilumine un poco, unos 2 minutos, y luego dejamos a ver quién más quiere agregar a eso.
Gracias, Arcelia. Sí, para empezar esta conversación, ¿no? Un poquito de historial acerca de las razones que han creado ciertas dificultades o obstáculos para que la familia y la comunidad más en general hable acerca de la salud mental, ¿no? Hay varios elementos de la salud mental. Y una de las cuantas razones que se han presentado en las instituciones académicas, ¿no? Universidades basadas en investigaciones, nos apuntan a nuestra historia de colonialismo, ¿no? En México y Latinoamérica. Las varias experiencias y traumas que nuestras comunidades enfrentaron al ser opresionados, ¿no? por los sistemas imperialistas, ¿no? Aquí España, Francia, Alemania, todo el trama que crearon al imponer sus sistemas en nuestras comunidades, especialmente el eliminar nuestras tradiciones religiosas, espirituales, ¿no? El crear un tipo de vergüenza, ¿no? Acerca de nuestros conocimientos tradicionales. Sobre las generaciones han creado un tipo de tabú al expresar dificultades con la salud mental, ¿no? Especialmente cuando se trata de jóvenes. Usualmente nuestros padres nos dicen, nos aconsejan, los problemas de la casa se quedan en la casa, ¿no? Es problema que la familia tiene que arreglar. Y de esos consejos que vienen de nuestro historial colonialista, empiezan ciertas vergüenzas y tabús, especialmente con nuestros jóvenes. En las escuelas no hay la libertad, el sentirse libre de expresar tal vez dificultades emocionales o psicológicas que los muchachos tengan, ¿no? Así es de que los conocimientos basados en las investigaciones de las universidades nos dan a saber que las razones, unas de las cuantas razones por las cuales no hablamos de nuestra salud mental son a causa de estos traumas que se han reproducido generación tras generación, ¿no? Y se han manifestado en las prácticas de la familia. En caso de que algunos de los otros panelistas quieran presentar otras razones, esas son dos de las mayores que vemos en nuestras comunidades.
Gracias, Karina. Tomo un momento para recordarle a los panelistas que cuando hablen, se tomen su tiempo para darle oportunidad a las intérpretes de traducirlo, porque nos van a cansar si nos apresuramos. Así que tómense su tiempo. Y sí, de todos modos, queremos un poquito yo sé que es difícil cortar las respuestas, pero tratar de tomarlo como entre unos 2-3 minutos. Muy bien. ¿Alguna otra panelista quisiera agregar a lo que dijo Karina de los tabúes y las dificultades?
Sí, Arcelia, soy Pati. Yo puedo agregar, una de las cosas que vemos bastante es el dicho que eso es de locos, ¿verdad? O sea, hablar de el hecho que estamos pasando por un trauma, un cambio familiar, un cambio interno, eso siempre se oye. no hay que hablar de eso porque esa cosa, eso es de locos. Y entonces, como estaba diciendo Karina, viene un tabú, una vergüenza con hablar de todas esas cosas. Y a veces el hecho de hablar como que lo hace real, ¿verdad? Si no lo hablamos, no existe. Pero en cuanto empiezas a hablar, es como que, oh, ok, tenemos este problema de familia, ¿verdad? Y entonces es allí donde viene el ego, de que, ¿qué va a decir la gente, verdad? Porque eso es muy importante, ¿verdad? O sea, en nuestras comunidades no somos tan individualistas como en los Estados Unidos, ¿verdad? Entonces, el hecho de que alguien de mi familia esté loco quiere decir que nosotros no estamos bien como unidad familiar. Y entonces eso a veces nos inhibe tener esas conversaciones cruciales. Otra de las otras cosas que yo he visto es que para mucha gente el hecho del espiritualismo y la religión es primordial, es súper importante, pero una noción de que la salud mental o cuando hay una inestabilidad, digamos, se ve como esta es mi cruz a cargar. Entonces es o algo, es un punishment, se me está yendo la palabra ahorita, perdón, de Dios. Y entonces un castigo, gracias intérpretes, un castigo y lo tengo que cargar, ¿verdad? Y entonces eso es como tomar yo responsabilidad por esto y no echárselo a alguien más, ¿verdad? Mantenerlo en la familia, como estaba diciendo Karina. Entonces, sí, esos tabús se han ido pasando de generación a generación. Y entonces, eso he visto yo, que platicar con la gente es algo que los inhibe años a veces acceder a servicios.
Sí, gracias, Patricia. Es pues muy cierto, ¿verdad? A veces, como Karina dice, tenemos mucho trauma y no nos damos cuenta que se está manifestando, ¿verdad? Todavía, en forma más chica, en más como en la unidad, como dices tú, de familia, pero ahí está. Así que la doctora Lori también, que quisiera agregar a la conversación.
Yes, I would. Thank you so much. And my perspective is coming from an Afro-Latina or an Afro-Indigenous perspective. I want to bring in the notion of being Indigenous because that trauma that Dr. Chavarria spoke of is so real and it comes through generationally. And when someone speaks of this word in English, mental illness, and in Espanol, salud mental, we don't want to necessarily talk about that because that means all of us have it. And it's because of this trauma, this feeling, this being colonized or feeling like we are always reacting to our environment as people of color. This is being a person of color in this reality. It's not a positive feeling. And those are just some of the effects. When I work with the Mixteco Indígena Community Organizing Project, and we were asked to ask our community, what are the symptoms of mental illness? It was impossible. There was no such thing as mental illness. We had to talk about symptoms associated with stress, anxiety, and depression. We had to talk about what those symptoms are like. We never were able to even articulate. There was no word in Mixteco for stress, for anxiety, or for depression, because it's just a way that you are after you have a baby, or the way that you feel after you migrate to here, or the way that you feel if you've been working in the fields 7 days a week and you don't have time to be with your family or you're living with multiple families. So this notion of mental illness is a reality for some of our community members. To talk about it and call it mental illness, yeah, shame definitely is one of those emotions that is around it. So the question of why is it hard to talk about mental illness in our communities? Because the mental illness is very real. And we don't want to talk about it in negative terms. And so what I really like about this conversation that we're having with the panelists and with all of you participants is that we can take some of that stigma away from mental illness, bring it out into the light, and let's talk about it in a way that's healthy so that we don't have to feel shame about our auntie over here or our uncle over there or ourselves if we are feeling in some way, shape, or form that is not, I don't know, that's not associated with stress. Who's not stressed out right now? Who doesn't have anxiety? And who isn't sad? You know, so this conversation is healthy. I appreciate talking about why is it hard to talk about it? Because it's so real. The fish doesn't want to talk about the water that it's swimming in. That's all of us, and that's our communities right now. So, woo, I'm so excited. Let's go.
Gracias, Dr. Laurie. No lo pude poner en palabras mejores que ustedes, así que gracias, ¿verdad? Por ponerles todas esas emociones que sentimos, todas esas preocupaciones, darles palabras. Y el momento que hacemos eso, sí, nos ayuda a todos. Y lo que yo quisiera agregar, no escuché que nadie lo haya mencionado, es cuando uno se siente así, tener, aunque sea una persona, que uno se sienta a gusto diciéndole, ¿sabes qué? Estoy teniendo un momento. You know, hay veces que amigas dicen, no, uno lo escucha en la televisión, you're having a moment, estás teniendo un momento, pero como dice la doctora, cuando a veces la vida está ocupada, hay mucho que hacer, no tienen un momento, así va a pasar, nos vamos a sentir como que es mucho. Pero es muy importante, ¿no? Tener a alguien que diga, que uno se sienta a gusto, porque igual si uno está mal, a lo mejor 3, 4 personas a tu alrededor y están mal y no pueden ser sensibles a lo que estás pasando. Así que mínimo uno buscar a alguien, una persona. Y a veces eso es todo lo que se necesita, ¿no? Quisiera darle el momento bueno, seguimos con las preguntas. Siempre hay mucho que decir. La próxima pregunta es, ya que uno se decide buscar ayuda, uno confía en aquella persona, ¿qué obstáculos vamos a encontrar? ¿No? ¿Qué obstáculos enfrenta la comunidad hispana?
Encountering in the community, Latino community, Afro-American community, while we're looking for those services. So I'm going to leave this to the panelists for the experts. So we're going to start with Karina so that she can share.
A veces unos tienen unos obstáculos y otros tienen otros, pero hay.
Gracias, Arcelia. Y me recordó la palabra desagüe, ¿no? Alguien a donde nosotros podemos dar la vuelta y desahogarnos, ¿no? Sacar todo lo que sentimos con alguien o en un lugar donde nos sintamos seguros, ¿no? El tema del acceso, ¿no? Hemos decidido que sí hay algo que tenemos que enfrentar, ya sea como individuos o como familia, y a dónde tomamos, ¿no? A dónde nos enfrentamos con esto, a dónde vamos. Varios de los obstáculos que existen y que sabemos ya de varias décadas que existen son las limitaciones al acceso médico, ¿no? En general. El acceso médico es un obstáculo que ha persistido ya por décadas, especialmente en las comunidades de color latinas, afroamericanas, no afrolatinas. Tenemos varias dificultades médicas y se nos hace muy, muy difícil encontrar el apoyo médico, las clínicas, ¿no? El acceso a las clínicas, el entrar a una clínica y saber cómo navegar el proceso, ¿no? De admisión o de pedir ayuda, ¿no? ¿Cómo se pide ayuda al entrar a una clínica, a un hospital? Usualmente nuestras comunidades asisten a una ayuda médica ya cuando es emergencia, ¿no? Y eso nos pone en problemas mucho más difíciles, porque ya al ir a una emergencia es algo grave, ¿no? El límite de acceso a recursos médicos en general, ya no se hable a un recurso de salud mental, ¿no? Es algo que todavía aquí en los estados no hemos suficientemente deshecho, ¿no? Todavía hay muchísimos obstáculos al acceso médico general. El no tener aseguranza médica, ¿no? ¿Cómo se va a pagar un bill al ir al doctor si no es emergencia, ¿no? Los recursos financieros a veces en nuestras comunidades desafortunadamente no existen. No hay suficiente dinero para pagar una aseguranza médica, ¿no? Un otro de los obstáculos que hay allí es ya al entrar a una clínica, la relación con la enfermera o con el doctor, ¿no? El habla, el tener las palabras para comunicarse con un doctor, con un enfermero que nos va a entender, ¿no? Que no nos vaya a interpretar incorrectamente el servicio que requerimos, ¿no? El acceso y luego la comunicación con doctores y con enfermeras que nos entiendan a nosotros, ¿no? Que no nos juzguen. Creo que son dos de los mayores obstáculos que enfrentamos nosotros en la comunidad. Lo dejo para otros de las panelistas.
Gracias, Karina. ¿Alguien quisiera agregar maybe en un minuto o dos a lo que han visto de su parte? Pues sí, o sea, esos dos son los más grandes, ¿no? ¿Qué más podemos decir? Si uno no ve el más allá de esos obstáculos, pues sí, honestamente, no, la mayoría no van a buscar ayuda, porque... Sí.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, if you were to ask the medical profession or even the county, which is the funder, multiple mental health services at the state and the county are the funders for the grant that we're working at in MICOP. And, you know, the whole point, the reason that we have the funds is to attract more of the Mixteco Indígena community to receive services. So it is for access. That is the whole point. But the work around getting our community to the county it's to bridge, and they use these words culturally responsive, culturally appropriate, but there's also language around culture. And we have to have the right language in order to provide access. And the people that, it can't just be a word for word translation, it has to be a cultural translation. Because when the community came to us for the symptoms for tuchi, or depression, or sadness, or espanto, these were words that the community was using. And what the community wanted was the limpia. They wanted the hierba. They wanted the baño de vapor. That's what the community wanted. How do we translate that to Ventura County Behavioral Health so that they understand this is what the community, we need to bridge these things. So this access that we're talking about, the obstacles are more than just having somebody who speaks Spanish. It's way more than that. People need to know the community. They need to be from the community. There need to be bridges. People from the community need to be working in the county to receive the community. So it's very interesting, you know, I just wanted to add that because it's super important because you're going to hear it around. And like Carolyn said, I am all around the county, and you'll hear it over and over again, culturally responsive, cultural competence. I'm sorry, that is scratching the surface. Those are words in English. We need to put the actions when we need to show, our community needs to show those who have all these services, how we can bridge. So an obstacle is trust and really being able to relate to our communities beyond just, I have a Spanish translation.
Exactly. Yeah. And I would agree. I would completely agree that, you know, really understanding someone's lived experience and their view of that experience. You know, there is definitely in the Western, you know, talk therapy world, there's definitely a lingo to therapy, you know, and even, folks that are, you know, US native born, it takes some time to understand what that lingo is. So how do you translate when you're feeling, you know, it's more of that visceral feeling that our folks are explaining. And so from the therapeutic perspective, they're asking them to check a box. And so there isn't that translation of experience is really, so yeah, absolutely. I would 100% agree with Dr. Lori that we definitely have to have practitioners from our community in order to be more effectively addressing the needs of the folks that we serve.
Gracias, Patricia. Y creo que eso pues nos trae a la otra pregunta, que es un poquito, yo creo que van juntas. La pregunta que viene es, ¿cómo la comunidad nos ayuda a construir nuestras propias definiciones de salud mental? Porque para a veces entender algo en grande, tenemos que entenderlo por nosotros mismos. Pero va con la conversación. Si no tenemos esas palabras, cómo definirlo entre familia, si no nos educamos unos a los otros, qué es el nombre, si no me dices tú qué es una curandera o qué es eso, no, yo no voy a saber expresar qué es lo que necesito, mucho menos más allá de eso, ¿no? Así que quisiera abrir esa pregunta. ¿Cómo podemos como comunidad e individuos hacer esa definición por nosotros mismos? Porque antes de ir a estudiar y regresar a la comunidad o cualquier comunidad que necesite a la voz latina, primero tenemos que educarnos nosotros y definir estas cosas. Así que les invito a contestar. ¿Qué han visto? ¿Cómo uno lo puede hacer por uno mismo?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I would say that, you know, while the Latino community does have a lot of similarities, we are also, you know, we also come from a very unique perspective, you know, and so that's really the starting point that I think that, you know, historically has kind of hit the mark, you know, just kind of lumping all, you know, Latinos together, you know, and thinking that it's all one and the same. And so really, you know, meeting the client where they're at. So what does that mean? You know, I think that there is a misconception that Latinos do not access mental wellness. I think the way that we access mental wellness looks different. And so I think that, you know, we need to change the narrative. Because whether it's with plantas and hierbas, you know, whether it's through storytelling, where we pass on instances of intergenerational resilience, you know, and kind of plant that seed in the next generation. That's really what we need to be really bringing to light and exposing, because at times, you know, if we're not talking about these things, they can be lost. They can be, you know, lost. So we really need to kind of bring a resurgence of what those things mean, so that they are now embedded into what someone's self-care wellness practices and really their self-care toolkit encompasses, because it really looks very different for everybody. You know, we talk about, you know, Latino communities being very extended and multi-generational, but how often are we talking about chancla culture? You know, how often are we talking about chisme culture, comadreando? All of these things, you know, whether you have a very enmeshed, so very connected, where your the family boundaries are blurred, or very disjointed. So all of those things make up the tapestry of what it means to be Latino, you know? So I think from practitioner standpoint is to take away this idea that a Latino looks a certain way, and really taking a look at the individual and what is their lived experience and what is their interpretation of that lived experience, and how do we meet them there. You know, because I think that more than anything, rather than using, you know, a technique, a tool, people need to be seen and they need to be heard. And when you meet them there, you know, everything else, those techniques will come.
I would like to offer another perspective to this question. We went to the curanderas. You'll hear me say that word, which is kind of trendy right now. I hesitate to use the word, but the elders in the community, for us in this case, and I can look at my own family outside of this case, and yes, the elders have the knowledge about our own definition for what people are calling mental illness. And it was the elders that were able to give us information about what, like Patricia just shared with us, what we do to take care of our people. When we're not balanced, this is what we do. This is what we do in this village. This is what we do in this part of Oaxaca. This is what we do in Oxnard. This is the tool. These are what we do to take care of ourselves. We don't run over to VCBH. We don't run over to this place or that place. We take care of this. We treat our own, we take care of ourselves. And it's eldering. It's the elders. And sometimes when we were doing this research, the elders were not necessarily working. They had been subdued. One of the families that we worked with, the mom was the elder. She had all of this knowledge. It was amazing. Her daughter was actually a practicing nurse. And she's like, why are you guys talking to my mom about this? And we're like, because we're doing this research project and your mom has valuable information. I thought that was just like old wives' tales kind of a thing. We're like, are you kidding? Your mom is like a treasure trove. She's got like the goods. She like knows. Well, and then the nurse was like, you're right. She did really. And then she began to validate those practices that belong to the community, and she was listening to herself. And it's that validation of these practices that is so important in this work around mental health. We do know we have trauma and we have been taking care of ourselves. How do we find the bridge between what we do and what is available, and take care of our people even better?
Absolutely.
Muy bien dicho. ¿Alguien más quiere agregar un poquito antes de seguir?
Sí, yo agrego bien rapidito el tema que presenta la doctora Lori, ¿no? Los conocimientos que traemos en varios países latinoamericanos, ¿no? Las prácticas se tienen valor, tienen estatus, ¿no? En nuestras comunidades, en nuestros ranchitos, en nuestros barrios, ¿no? Y al venir aquí a este país, hay como un desenlace, ¿no? Del valor que estos tipos de conocimientos tienen, y si no tenemos cuidado se empiezan a perder, ¿no? Y creo que en esta época que existimos hay como un resurge de ver a nuestros antepasados, a nuestros viejitos, y empezar con ellos, ¿no? Que ellos tienen un conocimiento ejemplar, y que por varias razones los hemos puesto al lado, ¿no? Y solo quería añadir ese punto al que presentó la doctora Lori.
Gracias. Sí, Karina y Daisy. por favor, ella también quería agregar a la conversación.
Yeah, just from my experience, I mean, my community as, you know, a college student is like my friends, right? Maybe not so much of like the older, like adults and everything, but it's like it's my friends. It's what I see on social media, right? And when we think about the way mental health is portrayed on social media, like you can get people joking from I'm gonna kill myself to like, let me help you, right? This is a safe zone. Like, so you can get this very wide version, and I think it can be very confusing if you don't know what mental health is. And I think being part of that community, being in that younger kind of generation, it can be confusing if you genuinely don't know what it is. I, as a psychology major, you know, I've learned that in my studies, but for example, I worked with some students in a high school in Oxnard, and we were like, okay, this week we're going to focus on self-care. And the amount of students, there was not a single student in that classroom that knew what self-care was, right? Like that's a big deal. If they don't know what self-care is, how are they gonna be able to help themselves, help others, be able to help, right? And be able to take care of themselves. So I also just wanted to add that in as well.
Gracias, Daisy. Me encanta que hiciste ese punto de que nadie sabía qué es eso, self-care.
Yeah.
Y es regresando a la conversación, por eso hay que hablar, porque también las palabras cambian sobre el tiempo y hay diferentes maneras de decir cosas, pero si no nos ayudamos a seguirle ese cambio a las palabras, nunca vamos a poder alcanzarlas, ¿no? Nunca vamos a poner esas palabras en nuestras bocas para poder seguir a lo que necesitamos. Les recuerdo a todos, hay que tomar las preguntas un poquito más despacio, nuestras respuestas. No quiero que se nos vayan las intérpretes y ya no quieran ayudarnos. Así que yo sé, todos nos emocionamos, queremos decir todo y darle toda la información, pero entre más despacio mejor. Así que gracias por todas estas increíbles preguntas, estas perspectivas, opiniones, experiencias. Y la siguiente pregunta, y les recuerdo a todos que en unos momentos vamos a hacer una rifa. Le voy a dar la oportunidad a Daisy primero a contestar de esa perspectiva de una joven. ¿Qué puede pasar si no buscamos ayuda? Y la pregunta pues es general para cualquier persona de cualquier edad, pero me encantaría la perspectiva de Daisy.
Yeah, I personally went through like a mild depression kind of period, and I was grateful enough to be able to know, you know, what it was I was going through, but also be able to have the support of other people. So I was fortunate enough in that situation to be able to get help and, you know, better myself. But if people don't have access to those same resources, you know, why is it that Latinas like have the higher social, have a higher rate of suicide compared to other people? Like, why is that, right? We've talked about like all of these obstacles that we're faced when looking for help and resources. And, you know, if we don't find that help, I think we can try and turn to confirmation bias. And it could be like, oh, they don't like me, right? Oh, they didn't text me back real quick. Oh yeah, they don't like me. And it can get them deeper into that kind of depression or whatever it is that they're going through. And confirmation bias can be so dangerous at that point, right? Because if you're just seeing all these things that confirm that no one likes me, I'm lonely, no one cares, right? I'm not worth anything. Like, that's very dangerous territory. So I think, you know, there's very, very high risk places where all of this can go to if we don't get the help we need.
Mm-hmm.
Exactamente, ¿verdad? Tenemos que encontrar esa fuerza dentro de nosotros y como dice Daisy, porque si no es muy fácil que ¿verdad? El tren va en las líneas, pero es muy fácil que se vaya a otro lado. Y es una conversación para todos, nos ayuda. Ahora quisiera tomar un momento de receso de la conversación y quisiera invitar a Carolina a que nos comparta qué es lo que alguien se va a ganar en la rifa, porque les prometimos también una rifa. Así que Carolina, ¿qué se va a ganar la primera persona?
All right. So at the Performing Arts Center, we did not want Day of the Dead to go uncelebrated. I know everyone will celebrate in their own way, but we wanted to ensure that the community would have a public celebration. So we're doing a drive-in, a Dia de los Muertos drive-in. Can't legally call it a drive-in, but that's what it is. So we're gonna have danzantes and, oh, I'm not allowed to speak in Spanish. Okay. Sorry. So people will get to come drive in. We have a stage in our parking lot. We have ballet folklorico, and we have some indigenous dancers from Oaxaca. We're gonna have mariachis. We have altares. We're gonna have, you know, Mexican food and you know, different giveaways. Everyone who comes to our Day of the Dead event will get an activity bag with free Day of the Dead activities and cookie decorating kits. I'm probably talking too fast. I'm sorry. So with that being said, and we will have a screening of Coco afterwards and some actual special guests from the movie. So it's going to be quite the event. This is on Sunday, November 1st. And if you've ever been to a drive-in, you know parking is primo, right? You want the best spot. So this raffle is to get front row, best parking spot in our parking lot for our Dia de los Muertos event. So one of our interns, Andrea, helped set up the raffle, and someone was randomly selected. Andrea, do you want to tell everyone who won?
Yes, our winner today is Bianca Covarrubias. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say your last name.
Bianca Covarrubias. Bianca
Covarrubias
es nuestra ganadora de la rifa. Bianca.
Thank you so much, you guys.
Felicidades.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Bueno, oye, Carolina, ¿a cuántas personas puede poner en el carro?
As you can fit. With a seatbelt.
Okay.
Safety is very important.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Felicidades, Bianca. Gracias por estar con nosotros. Muy bien, entonces seguimos. Nos quedan unos pocos minutos. Quisiera preguntar una pregunta más, darle a todos la oportunidad de tener la conversación. Y primero les recuerdo que a las 4:30 se termina esta conversación, pero de 4:30 a 5 los invitamos a los que quieran quedarse para tener una conversación después del panel y preguntarles. Vamos a tener, discúlpame si no voy a decir tu nombre bien, es Tolteca, Aileen Tolteca creo. Y
Sí,
ella,
lo dijo bien.
gracias Aileen. Ella es una de las artistas de quienes les demostré sus dibujos hace rato. Ella va a estar con nosotros en esos 30 minutos de 4:30 a 5. Así que si quieren quedarse y preguntarle a ella y a los otros panelistas, los invito a que se queden. Ahora seguimos con la conversación. Nos quedan 15 minutos. Vamos a ver hasta dónde podemos llegar. Y no se les preocupen, vamos a tener más discursos en los próximos meses. Así que la siguiente pregunta. Tengo muchas, así que permítanme escoger cuál quiero. Deja ver, vamos a ver. Es importante que la persona con la dificultad lo enfrente solo. A veces ese es un obstáculo interno que uno siente que no puede no decirlo, que uno tiene que estar solo en esta batalla. Alguien dijo hace rato, tiene uno muchos obstáculos que van a decir, que van a juzgar a mi familia o a mí. Entonces les invito primero a Daisy que nos dé su perspectiva, como ella dijo, ella tuvo su propia experiencia y cómo fue, cómo sale uno de, no, yo lo tengo que averiguar solo.
Yeah. Again, like I said, I kind of went through like a mild kind of depression period at the beginning of the year. And again, I was grateful and fortunate enough to be able to not go through that alone. But I know that's not the case for many other people. So I think it's very important to have a strong support system around you if you are going through something. And I know we talked about some of the difficulties of, you know, maybe it's, you can't turn to your family, right? Because then it's like, oh, you're the crazy one, right? We're not going to talk about it. You know, and sometimes it's not your family, unfortunately, you can turn to, but, you know, there's other people. If you're in high school, if you're, you know, if you're still in school, there's counselors you can talk to be able to get you the help you need. Your friends can be great allies, just maybe not so much in a professional sense, but, you know, to be able to be there for you, to not make you feel crazy like it's meant out to be. And I had a great support system. I mean, my mom, you know, she was really there for me, and I was fortunate enough not to be able to have to turn away from her, but to be able to talk it through with her, you know, talk it through with my friends. Like, look, I don't know what's happening. I don't know why I'm feeling like this, but, you know, I'm like, there's something there, and it's super important to not be able to face this. And there's so many resources out there, and people that want to help, right? That's why there's projects like this, to be able to show you your resources you have, you know, to be able to not face something like this by yourself.
Gracias, Daisy. ¿Alguien más quisiera agregar a la pregunta? O la respuesta más bien.
Well, I do want to say that, you know, as human beings, we're really wired for connection. And so, you know, it ultimately doesn't matter kind of what you do, but who you do it with, you know. And so as long as we're reaching out to someone, whether it's chosen family, friends, you know, reaching out to a therapist, reaching out, you know, it really is important to reach out and to connect and to unpack that stuff, you know. Just sometimes calling it out relieves that pressure that you're carrying, you know. So even that simple act is really, really critical. And I know that, you know, sometimes these things can be very, very challenging, but the more that we continue to have these conversations, the more that we normalize. This is not cosa de locos. This is part of being a human in this life. And, you know, if I can tell you, you know, like Dr. Lori was saying, if I had a dime for every time that somebody said, oh my, especially in these times, I'm feeling so sad and upset and frustrated and alone and like I'm not doing enough, and like, you know, all of these things. And sometimes I do share often, sometimes the best way to show up for your community is to show up for yourself. Sometimes the lessons that you're showing your family is through how you take care of yourselves. And so to not underestimate the fact that resilient communities are based not so much on entities and agencies, but on the resilience of individuals. So I know that in this society of, you know, things are tangible, you know, things are based on likes and shares and things like that, you know, and titles, that sometimes, you know, that internal work, that heavy work that you're doing might not be something that you can share on social media, but it is integral to creating that change, not only with you, but across the generations.
Beautiful. Muy bien dicho. Gracias, Patricia. Doctora Lori.
I lost my sister. I lost a sister to suicide 3 years ago. She had bipolar, but our family didn't know. She did share that with her friends and with her partner. They did not tell us. We had no idea. If someone is coming to you and they're confiding in you, sometimes you need to break the confidentiality. Sometimes you do need to do that out of love, because had we known, she didn't tell us because we presume cannot ask, because she was ashamed because of the stigma. That's why she didn't want us to know. But if I would have known and my other sister would have known, we would have been able to support our sibling in ways that she needed. Now we can't do that because she's no longer with us. And so I just want to share with you that I know you want to have the confidentiality, and if someone shares, you feel special that they should. That's not something to hold. If someone is talking about suicide or a mental illness or a prescription for something that they're taking, you know, please, I implore you, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity to get this message across a very important platform at a very important time. We need to support each other, but if we don't know what's happening, we cannot do that.
Gracias, doctora Lori. Karina, ¿quería agregar a la conversación?
Yeah, I think many of us in here are engaged in this kind of work because we have personal deep experiences, right, with mental illness. And so, I mean, I have a younger brother who, you know, coping mechanism of drug abuse, right? And not really understanding how to support him, right? At this point, he's homeless and we don't really know where he's located. And what I wanted to add is that for some of us who've experienced trauma, one of the coping mechanisms becomes self-sufficiency, right? An issue of trust. Like, I can't trust anybody, so I will, you know, take control of everything myself. I will make sure I am well myself, right? And that becomes an issue of asking for help becomes a sign of weakness, right? And overcoming that internalization of what strengths and weaknesses are is difficult. But I think at the individual level, going back to the question you asked, ARCELIA, that's some of the major internal work that is necessary to kind of undo, right, these often negative coping mechanisms that are a result of self-hurt, and having somebody at least one person to confide in, to be a sounding board, and they can begin that stage of redefining what strength and weaknesses are. I just wanted to add that point.
Gracias, Karina. Y sí, es todo, a veces son muchas partes, son partes personales, individuales, el conflicto interno, y es la sociedad, las expectativas, las definiciones de la sociedad, eso es todo. Así que les agradezco a todos ustedes por traer su experiencia, su profesión, su opinión profesional, lo que han visto a esta conversación hoy. Me da tristeza que ya nos vamos a ir en muy pronto, pero les recuerdo que tenemos otros 3 discursos al transcurso de los próximos, hasta el mayo, va a ser el último, en los próximos meses. El salón que sigue va a ser el número 2, va a ser sobre los factores de estrés, porque como decimos, es una conversación como un pastel, tiene muchas piezas a esta conversación, y esto es apenas el principio. Los factores de estrés se necesita otra hora y media, a lo mejor más, pero lo haremos en hora y media, porque hay muchos, igual individuales y en la comunidad. Así que les recuerdo que nos sigan en la página de oxnardperformingarts.com, en la página del programa de Esperanza Project, para ver las fechas y los tiempos y todo de los salones que siguen. El salón número 2 va a ser en enero y por favor continúen con nosotros al transcurso de los meses de tener estos eventos. Inviten a todos sus familiares, inviten a sus amistades, recuérdenles que es una conversación para todos, no porque vienen es porque necesitan ustedes o ellos la conversación. Entre más lo podamos normalizar, más fácil va a ser para alguien poder hablar de esto y no tomar decisiones drásticas que afectan a toda la comunidad. Ahora quisiera tomar un minuto para hacer la segunda rifa. Le paso a Carolina que nos platique qué va a ser este segundo premio de la segunda rifa. Y después que ella nos diga, Andrea nos puede comentar quién es la ganadora.
Well, and before Andrea tells us, I want to say I put a link in here for Wednesday's event. I wanted to ensure we communicated that. ARCELIA has developed, do you want to talk about it? I think it makes sense for you to talk about it.
Gracias gracias por eso. Le iba a comentar después, pero de una vez vamos a invitar a la comunidad, a las que puedan participar. Estas charlas mensuales se llaman Sin Vergüenza Charlas, Without Shame Charlas. And son una oportunidad para jóvenes, adolescentes, reunirse y tener un espacio que es abierto, libre de juzgarnos, donde vamos a enfocarnos en actividades artísticas. Pueden aprender algo nuevo que les pueda ayudar en esos momentos difíciles o que ustedes pueden compartir con su familia y sus amistades. Pero es un espacio en donde al transcurso de estas actividades artísticas, si hay conversaciones, estamos libres de platicarlo, no nos vamos a juzgar, porque en estos temas ese es el número uno cosa que es necesario, es poder hablar libremente de lo que está pasando, de lo que sentimos, y a veces estar en grupo con otras personas de la misma edad, pero que no necesariamente son familia, no nos van a juzgar, o que nos abran el campo para hablar de las mismas experiencias, ¿verdad? Así que estas charlas son mensuales. Buscamos a jovencitas que quieran participar por las próximas 8 sesiones, una cada mes. Van a ser los 2 miércoles, como puso ahí Carolina en el boletín. Ahí tienen los detalles de la próxima charla, la primera que viene, octubre 21 a las 7 p.m. de la tarde. Vamos a hacer zines con Marie. Ella es una artista que tiene mucha experiencia haciendo zines y la mejor manera que lo puedo describir son libretitos o revistas chicas miniaturas y uno las decora, uno les pone la historia, porque a veces eso es lo que necesitamos. Primero es uno hacer esas definiciones y escribir uno su propio libro, y en este caso en forma de zine. Así que les invito a aquellas adolescentes que quieran ese espacio, ¿verdad? A veces afuera de las amigas, a veces afuera de la familia, otro espacio para venir, aprender algo nuevo, enseñarnos algo nuevo y tener conversaciones libres donde uno pueda sentirse a gusto.
All right, so we have another winner, and I would love to just add a second entry into our Dia de los Muertos. So, Andrea, do you want to tell us who won one of these other primo parking spots to our amazing event?
Oh, so our second winner is Marisol.
Yay, Marisol.
Oh my God, I'm so happy. I never win anything.
Nunca decir never, como dice el dicho. Felicidades, Marisol. Esperamos tu reporte en el evento. ¿Qué te gustó? ¿Cómo podemos mejorarlo? Felicidades. Gracias por estar aquí con nosotros hoy. Bueno, se acabó el momento, pero primero que nada, antes de dejar los continuar a la segunda parte de esto y a los demás que se van a ir a su casa o de fiesta. Muchas gracias, como dijo Carolina, hacia el California Arts Council que nos provee ayuda. Gracias a Carolina, gracias al OPAC, al Oxnard Performing Arts Center. Gracias, muchísimas gracias a las invitadas en este panelistas, Daisy, Patricia, Karina, Dr. Lori. Un abrazo muy grande y ojalá no las agotamos a nuestras intérpretes de Bridging Voices. Un aplauso, un abrazo, gracias a ellas por ayudarnos en este programa y esperamos que nos acompañen en los salones que siguen. A todos ustedes que estuvieron con nosotros, los invitamos a que nos sigan en los próximos eventos. Muchas gracias por su participación. Los invito a que se comuniquen conmigo o con Carolina, sea por la página de oxnardperformingartscenter.com con ella o conmigo en email martinez.arcelia@gmail.com. Ahorita lo ponemos en la conversación. Comuníquense con nosotros. Queremos saber cómo podemos mejorar estas conversaciones, preguntas que nos faltaron, si las podemos agregar a los salones que vienen. ¿Alguien quisiera decir algunas palabras para cerrar ya y dejar todos ir a comer? Porque yo creo que ya tienen hambre. Yo sé, ya tienes hambre.
Yeah, no. Well, thank you very much, Arcelia, for putting this together. And I'm just so happy to have been a part of it. If I can leave everyone with a bit of just kind of a nugget of, something to ponder is that really, your wellness is, and your mental health is as unique as you are. So whether, you're employing prayer, meditation, elder, storytelling, exercise, connection with nature, medication, therapy, whatever that looks like for you is absolutely okay, because this is your health. And so although it may not look like someone else's, it doesn't mean that, it's more or less or better or whatever. You are the expert in your care. And so to really take charge and know what you need, and speak it, and, let the practitioners know what your needs and your preferences are, because you really are a partner in your care. So thanks everyone for joining us today. Thank you for having me.
Gracias, Patricia. Pues con eso concluimos la conversación, pero los invito a quedarse de las 4:30 a las 5. Los que quieran, les damos unos minutos para los que quieran quedarse. ¿Qué tal si regresamos en 2 minutos? ¿Necesita alguien usar el baño, tomar agua porque hace mucho calor? Así que podemos poner nuestras pantallas. Podemos quitarle el video y tomamos un receso de 2 minutos. Regresamos a las 4:37. Gracias por estar aquí. Los vemos pronto, en 2 minutos. Vamos a darle unos minutos a los que se van a quedar con nosotros y tener una conversación. Hoy tenemos a Aileen Tolteca, que es una de las artistas de quien compartimos su trabajo hoy. Hola, Aileen. Oh, me encanta.
Hola, mucho gusto en conocerlos a todos.
Igualmente, gracias. Bueno.
Background.
Thank you. I'm a big Hello Kitty fan.
Encantada. Bueno, empezamos la última parte de la conversación de Q&A. Las preguntas. Tenemos a Aileen Tolteca. Siempre quiero decir Aileen. Discúlpame. Aileen Tolteca. ¿Quieres dar unas palabras de tu trabajo, de lo que tú haces como artista, de cómo está el tema de salud mental involucrado, si es que lo está? o tu experiencia en general?
Ujú. Claro que sí, lo voy a decir en inglés y en español para que no esté molestando a los intérpretes, que les dé un break. Hola, mi nombre es Aiden Guadalupe Tolteca y lo uso completamente porque pienso que es importante. Soy una artista chicana y una estudiante universitaria en las carreras de estudios chicanos y arte. Espero un día meterme en la educación. Quisiera ser profesora o maestra de preparatoria y mi trabajo ha venido o nació de mis intereses y ¿cómo se dice? Que dónde soy y para intentar demostrar mis dos identidades, como tratar de expresar mi cultura, a pesar de que soy mexicana americana, nací acá, pero mis papás son de México. Y pienso que cuando era más joven, o bueno, más chiquita, porque tengo 19 años, claro, todavía soy una niña, este, se me hacía muy difícil ver a personas de color como yo en poder o no había mucha representación en el arte porque, digamos, si hablan de un artista mexicano, todos hablan de Frida Kahlo o Diego Rivera. No se ve o se escucha más artistas que representen nuestra comunidad o muchos artistas o que haya muchos artistas mexicanos americanos. Y mi arte nació de eso, de querer ver ese tipo de representación en la comunidad para que otros muchachos o muchachas o personas puedan ver un pedazo de arte y decir, oh, esto soy yo y son mis intereses. Intento involucrar mis intereses por, digamos, Disney o los videojuegos o shows o películas que a mí me gustan y demostrarlos con mi cultura. Soy conocida más por una pieza que Viva Oxnard, la página y el grupo local, que ha sido muy fuerte y ha hecho muy buen trabajo localmente en los últimos años, como crear becas para estudiantes, levantar las voces de la comunidad y de los artistas locales. Y gracias a ellos he podido avanzar en mi carrera como arte. La pieza que me pidieron que se llama Desde Casita, fue para promocionar su libro de colorear que fue distribuido gratis a muchas familias en Oxnard y es una pieza de mi hermana y yo coloreando el libro. Pero también es para representar a nuestra comunidad y honorar a los trabajadores de las granjas que son más que esenciales y merecen mucho respeto y amor durante estos tiempos que a pesar de todo, sea fuego, lluvia o viento, siguen trabajando duro para poner comida en nuestras mesas y para darles de comer a sus familias. So I'm gonna do it in English now. Hi, my name is Eileen Guadalupe Tolteca.
I think, creo que las intérpretes se encargaron porque nos queda poco tiempo y quisiera abrir la conversación a invitados que quiera hacerte una pregunta. Los invito a que o lo pongan en el chat, pongan su pregunta y nuestras ayudantes, sea Andrea o Jocelyn o Michelle, nos van a ayudar si les da pena y no quieren hacer la pregunta. Pero les doy un minuto, 30 segundos, un minuto para el que quiera hacer una pregunta. Puede hacerla ellos mismos, levantar la manita en las reacciones, maybe quitarse del video y dejarse ver, o pueden poner la pregunta en el chat. So, invito a alguien que tenga alguna pregunta para Eileen. Ahora es el momento. Tenemos una pregunta de Cassandra. Dice, ¿qué son los planes del futuro en tu arte?
Hi, Cassandra. Qué bueno es verte de nuevo. Pues quisiera estudiar arte en la universidad que estoy estudiando. Quiero hacer doble carrera y espero algún día trabajar localmente con una organización como Causa o otro tipo de organizaciones, hacer gráficas para ellos y pues básicamente quedarme aquí, involucrar mi arte aquí, pero también quisiera usar mi arte y poder empezar un tipo de programa o fundación que pueda ayudar a más artistas aquí locales o a estudiantes en la prepa o la secundaria o la primaria que tengan los programas y los útiles necesarios para que puedan crear arte, porque no se ve mucho de eso aquí.
Ujú. Marisol y Andrea y todos estamos aplaudiendo.
Thank you.
Porque sí, es muy importante, ¿verdad? Uno puede ir a estudiar y hacer la vida por uno, pero también se necesita regresarle un poquito a la comunidad todo aquel apoyo que nos provee. Y muchas gracias a ti por tenernos a todos en mente. Y como decía mi abuelita, que Dios te dé más para que nos des más. Pero tú primero que nada, que alcances todas tus metas. Ay, qué linda. Gracias, Cassandra, por esa pregunta. ¿Alguien más quiere hacerle una pregunta a Karina?
Yeah, nice to meet you, Eileen. And your art is really amazing. I will definitely be sharing it with all my students with your permission.
You're more than welcome to.
I wanted to hear a little bit about how you came to identify art as a venue by which you could express not just yourself, but also the community.
I think that I've always been very artistic, but it's been mostly because of my parents. My dad, when he was younger, and like even now, like we didn't really have that much money growing up, so my parents would always be the ones making our Halloween, Christmas decorations, birthday decorations. They would make cutouts and all of this stuff, and I just kind of saw it as a way of like expressing and like, you know, celebrating like certain occasions. And I took that into mine a lot when I was little, and I would always make like greeting cards for my parents, or I would like for their birthdays I would draw them and me and this big cake that maybe we couldn't afford, but in my mind I was like, look, I made this for you. And as I got older, I used it a lot to express how I felt about the world around me. Mostly when I was younger, I used to draw a lot of white or Eurocentric people in my art, and I started to notice that a lot, and it kind of bothered me that I couldn't really like figure out a way to draw people like myself, and I didn't really see any media related to that around me. And like I decided to like, I was like, I want to see someone that looks like me, and I don't want it to be someone, how can I say this, because typically in the media that I saw, a lot of brown people are drawn or painted in a way that I didn't really think would fit us. Like if like the colors were very like dark and like grays and stuff like that. And whenever I create or I draw, I try to draw people like me and people of color in a way that shows like how vivid and beautiful our culture is. I use a lot of like bright colors, and I try to do a lot of like saintly aesthetics, especially like in my in the piece I did of my mom and I do a lot of allusions to religion and stuff like that, because I feel like over many years past and stuff like that, we've been we've been discriminated and criminalized for a lot of things, and sometimes it can be a lot hard. Sometimes sorry about that. Sometimes it can be very hard to look at ourselves and be like wow, I'm really this beautiful, and like my culture is so beautiful, and like everything about me is beautiful. So that's how I try to show yeah, that's how I try to use my art to express myself, and how I kind of figured it out over the years. I'm still learning, and I'm still growing and finding ways of showcasing it. Yeah, I hope that's a decent answer.
No, thank you very much. That was amazing.
Mucho talento, eso sí. Pero como dices tú, tú lo hacías y lo seguías haciendo, y como va el tiempo va uno encontrando su voz y las cosas que uno quiere expresar, ¿no? Uh-huh. Hermoso trabajo, hermoso. ¿Alguien más? ¿Una pregunta para Eileen? A ver. Dice... ¿Alguien? Ok. ¿Alguien tenía un comentario? Déjalo digo como lo escribieron en el chat. I had a comment more than a question. My middle name is Guadalupe too, and I spent a lot of years being embarrassed of it when I was younger because of how Spanish sounding it is. And I've been working a lot to get rid of that internalized feeling. So I appreciate that you embrace it and use it.
It's funny because I did that a lot too. I was very embarrassed of my name when I was younger, and I remember that when I was younger, a lot of people had a trouble mispronouncing it, the Eileen. So I'd be like, my name is Alien instead, and I would never mention my middle name. But as I grew older, I was like, this is ridiculous. You know, like my mom gave me my mom, but my parents gave me this name, and this name is so important to them that like they chose it for their child, especially because well, I mean, I feel like I can share this. My mom almost had a miscarriage with me, and she would pray to La Virgen de Guadalupe a lot when she would have me, and she'd be like, please let me have this child. And that's why she named me Guadalupe. And Guadalupe to me is very important because I visualize and see her as a symbol of resistance, of our people's perseverance, despite what has happened to us over the years. So I really try and to use my work and like my name as much as I can, especially because we shouldn't let anyone make us feel embarrassed for our names. And if someone misspells it or mispronounces it on purpose, I always try to be like, this is my name and this is how you're going to pronounce it. It's not Ellen or Gilupe or something like that. It's Eileen Guadalupe Toldeca. It's not anything shorter, and it is this, and it's final.
No, gracias. Es importante y nos vas a hacer llorar a todos. Me da mucho gusto que podamos tener esa conversación porque muchas cosas en la vida se basan a esa definición que tiene uno personal. Su nombre, por empezar. Entonces, yo lo veo como, yo no sé si han visto, escuché por ahí la historia o, por ahí se escuchó que venía una persona indígena a la ciudad y le decían, ten orgullo de quién eres, ¿no? De cómo te vistes, más que nada. Y creo para esas generaciones como las de nosotros, que a lo mejor estamos un poquito más ya distantes de la cultura del vestuario, pero llevamos esa cultura en el nombre. Igual yo, ¿no? Mi nombre es Celia y mucha gente piensa que es italiano, me quieren decir Chelly o Arcelia, y yo no es mexicano. Entonces yo creo que para esta generación eso es el equivalente de esa persona que viene de la cultura más cercana indígena, que se visten de esa manera. Entonces a nosotros no tenemos el vestuario diario puesto, pero el nombre está diario puesto y tenemos que todos los días recordarle al mundo quiénes somos, no nada más a ellos, por nosotros también. Quisiera invitar a preguntas para las panelistas, porque todavía están aquí y tienen ellas muchísima información y quisiera que no perdamos esa oportunidad de hacerles alguna pregunta. Alguien, como dije, pueden hacerlo privadamente en el chat, pueden poner su video y los podemos ver, o sin video, levanten su mano. Les doy un segundito a ver quién se anima.
I guess, can I ask a question? Okay. The holidays are coming up, and this is something RC and I have chatted about, how stressful that can be. You know, we're all home with the pandemic and, family, it can get to be a bit much. Is there techniques or recommendations that the panelists have for, dealing with maybe toxic family or just the holidays and the stress that comes with them? Some iteration of that.
Gracias. Muy buena pregunta. Doctora Lori?
Yeah, I shared in the chat a little bit, I didn't know if we were going to come back or how this was going to end, but I think it's really important for everyone, not just people of Indigenous ancestry, to center by, we're using your breath, and to ground using the earth, and connect to your ancestral lineage, whatever it is, because somebody prayed or meditated you into existence. And that act, simple act of paying homage to your people, to your lineage, is very grounding, and it's very centering, a centering act, a practice to do before you enter into that space. I was told by my big sister I have to take a COVID test before I go to her house for Thanksgiving. And I'm like, are you out of your mind? Then I thought, no, center, ground. Okay, we share mom and dad and ancestral line. That makes sense. Let me just center by inhaling and ground, exhaling. Mama Tierra, Mother Earth, Gaia, Tefeno, Papa Notua, whatever you call her. Just having that, just trying to remember to have that as part of your practice, and to do that daily, or 3 times or 5 times or 10 times, however many times you need to do that. That is what I would suggest for everybody. And I know for the team, Amico, that's what we've been practicing in Curando el Alma. And I think it's kind of changed our lives a little bit, because it's been hard. COVID wrecked us. It wrecked all of us. It took us all off. One of the things we can all share is we all got taken off balance at about the same time. And we all need to try in each one of our own individual ways to get back. Connect, get your lineage back into your cells and your DNA. And that's what my suggestion would be. Thank you for giving me a chance to share that, Carolyn.
Gracias, doctora Lori. Es muy importante. Sí, Karina.
One of the, as Dr. Lori is mentioning, this year has just wreaked havoc on all of us around the planet. And so one of the practices I've started to engage in more than I used to even a year ago is just simple breathing exercises, especially coming the holidays, and possibly for some of us who've lost family, won't get to see them ever again because we just weren't allowed, right? Just the physical act of breathing in clean oxygen into the system works wonders, because it'll clean the blood and allow the brain to engage and clean cells, right? And it might not feel like it's a lot, but if we give it time, you can really feel the difference in terms of calming the body and the spirit, especially if we're going to go on trips, maybe driving, right? Or even down to the next city, those breathing exercises on the way there, and then on the way to entering, right, our families' homes, can work wonders to ensure that the engagement with family is one that's productive and happy, right? So that's one advice that I could offer.
And so to circle back, I think I'm also a yoga teacher, and so I would have to agree with the ladies that I really try to embed no cost and low cost tools to our self-care, daily techniques. And so I would reiterate that the use of just mindful breathing throughout your transitions. So that's a thing that I always talk to clients about. So, whether or not you're transitioning from, well, we're not really going outside of our house, but let's say, you're going from one place to another, you're sitting in your car, and you can just take a few moments to breathe, and it helps the body to create space, especially if you're feeling an emotion, you're riding that wave of emotion of, oh my gosh, I'm entering into Thanksgiving, and kind of projecting what that might look like. So just really centering yourself and breathing, and allowing yourself to center yourself before you're going into that situation. So that can be practiced throughout the day. In the morning, when you're waking up, just 3 breaths it is really important. I think another thing that has really thrown us off a little bit is well, a lot of us can be very routine bound and tradition bound. And so that is really one of the things that has been taken away by this. So I would say that letting go of expectations of what traditions look like, they might look different this year. And so it's an opportunity to evolve the traditions that we have and how we celebrate and how we come together. So rather than focusing on what we've lost, think about the opportunities that this offers us. Okay, so that would be my my suggestion. Letting go of expectations and allowing yourself to be in this moment, knowing that this moment is presenting itself for a reason and for a lesson. So if we're thinking, gosh, what's the lesson here, rather than holding on to what was, just kind of expands us into and helps us to lean into the moment and to be more present. So yeah, if I can offer, if anybody is open to it, maybe we can do like a quick 3 breaths together. Are you guys open to that? Okay, let's do that. Okay, so I know we're gonna, okay, so let's center into our chairs. So just kind of, you guys can close your eyes if you'd like. Make sure that your feet are connecting to the floor, making sure that you relax your knees, relax your belly. And you can put the palms of your hands either up to the sky, just kind of raising up to the heavens, making sure that your shoulders are back. Make sure or think of a string that's at the top of your head that's bringing your head up just slightly. And I want you to begin to engage your breath just slowly and at your own pace. So begin a big belly breath, deeply breathing inside. And exhale through your mouth. As you begin again, feel your belly rising and falling. In and out. Feel your breath as if it's a wave crashing in and out. So we'll try it one last inhale and exhale. Breathe in. And out. When you're ready, you can begin to wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers. And then if you've been closing your eyes, you can begin to open your eyes.
Gracias, Patricia. Creo que hubiésemos empezado con eso, ¿no?
Yeah. So just take a moment to practice that, and that was a very modified moment, but, see what feels good to you throughout the day.
Quiero invitar a todos que continúen esas técnicas que ellas han compartido con nosotros. Antes de irnos, nos hemos pasado 2 minutos, pero quisiera darle la oportunidad a una de los ayudantes, Andrea, hacer la última pregunta o comentario. Y después de eso nos podemos ir tranquilos con estas nuevas técnicas, información, sabiendo que la conversación va a continuar y todos estamos aquí para apoyarnos. Andrea?
Hi, my question is really for Dr. Lori. I have a lot of people in my life who struggle with mental health, and they don't necessarily, want to ask for support, but how can we support our loved ones without being kind of overbearing?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that question. It's a good question for me to actually have a self-reflection moment, because I was one, or I am one of 3 sisters, and myself and the other sister, we are overbearing. And I think that we might have alienated our sister who we lost a little bit because of our, just, you can tell, I just have a lot of energy, and so does the other sister, and so did our little sister. I think if we would have listened more and just been more available, and just been more, just, it's a really tough question, but just being available and just listening, being more observant, I think one way to support, because if we were that way, she may have approached us. But I can't tell if she would have or not. I can't tell you, but I feel like if we could do over, if there were do-overs, I would say that myself and my other sister, we would have just been more available, more quiet. And it's a hard question because it's very individualized. Like Patricia was saying, you know, there's not a cookie cutter answer to this question, you know. Judgment, obviously we were very non-judgmental with our sister, but maybe she didn't think that. Maybe she thought that we were judgmental. We don't know. We didn't have the opportunity to have those conversations or those talks. So I would say just being available, if you know that someone in your family is struggling with mental health issues or with substance abuse issues, that they're coping in some way, I would say you just have to be unconditionally loving and just being available, more so, more generous than you would be with anyone else. Because if you know this, then know this, they're suffering on some level. Know that someone has any kind of, on the spectrum of mental illness, there is some level of suffering. So compassion and empathy, overboard, you know, if I could do it again, that is what I would suggest. Thank you for your question, and thank you for the opportunity to reflect and to think about and answer that really important question, Andrea.
Y con eso, ¿querías decir algo, Andrea?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Oh, did you want to say anything else before I cut you off?
Oh, no, thank you. I was done.
Ok. Con eso terminamos esta parte de la reunión. Les doy otra vez muchísimas gracias a todos ustedes por estar con nosotros y seguir ahorita hasta más de las 6. Encantada de escuchar sus preguntas porque a alguien aquí o de la comunidad le sirve, y ponerlo afuera en palabras, a la luz, nos ayuda a todos. Y otra vez muchas gracias. Por favor, sigan los eventos que vienen en la página oxnardperformingarts.com, en la página de Esperanza Project. Gracias otra vez y nos vemos pronto en el panel que sigue, en el salón que sigue en enero. Y ojalá y pueda haber algunas de nuestros participantes en las charlas este viernes que viene. No se les olvide registrarse. Gracias a todos ustedes. Que pasen un buen sábado.